It was Garrett Crochet versus James Paxton, and the Dodgers got the win. It's a good start to the series. We'll get into that. We'll get into the Miggies. And is Miguel Vargas a trade target or someone that could help the Dodgers this season? We'll get into all that. So let's get locked on Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yo, Dodger fans. Welcome to Locked On Dodgers. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the number one local sports daily podcast network. Locked On, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB and use code all lowercase LockedOnMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. This is the daily podcast covering the Los Angeles Dodgers, bringing you the smart fans' perspective on our boys in blue. You can find us wherever you find podcasts and on YouTube. All you got to do is search for Locked On Dodgers, and you can become an everydayer by listening or watching every day. And you can make that easier on yourself by subscribing and get notified when our episodes are ready. Or if we're going live like we are tonight after the Dodgers win in Chicago. If this is your first time listening or watching, welcome. My name is Vince Samperio, joined by my co-host, Jeff Snyder. Jeff and I are both lifelong Dodger fans that have covered the team for a decade. We've been doing this podcast for more than half of that decade, and we've been watching the Dodgers all of our lives. So, we're here to bring you what we believe is knowledgeable and rational takes on the Dodgers, and hopefully making everyone a better Dodger fan in the process, however you want to take that. And Jeff, glad your voice is going to hopefully hold up for this episode. I don't want to jinx it. Maybe I already did, but we're here for now.
Yeah, we'll see which goes better, my voice or your Wi-Fi tonight. So
yeah, I think we're good now. It's Sunday nights are when they're bad. Monday nights it looks like we're clean. So either way, we'll see what happens. But the Dodgers got the win in a game started by Garrett Crochet against James Paxton. There's a lot of different contributions to the win for the Dodgers. But when you start a series this way and you kind of look at pitching matchups, and it's not always going to determine who wins or loses right off the bat. But when you look at this pitching matchup and you looked at the lineup, especially with Teoscar and Hernandez, we got the news that he was going to be out tending to a personal matter in the Dominican Republic. And the Dodgers lineup got a little bit even shorter than it normally is. You thought, okay, well, I don't know if the Dodgers can win this one, but hopefully they can keep it close enough to have a chance against the White Sox bullpen. And essentially, that's exactly what happened.
Yeah. Obviously the Dodgers are a better team than the White Sox, but coming into this series, you look at this, and if the White Sox were favored in a game, it was going to be this game based on how Paxton has pitched at times this season, although this is now two great starts in a row for him. Of course, it's also two starts in a row against terrible teams, so it's hard to know how much we can read into that. But Crochet has been outstanding this year, and he was outstanding today. But the fact is both starting pitchers put up zeros. And, I think that for Paxton to be able to come in, and the White Sox are a bad team, still major league hitters though, and Paxton threw strikes when he needed to. He walked three guys, but it wasn't a walk fest. He got a lot of swing and miss. All in all, Paxton keeping the Dodgers in the game was a really, really big deal. And the Dodgers offense did a really good job of, even though they couldn't score on Crochet, they got his pitch count up and got him out of the game, before the sixth inning was done, which meant they had a little over 3 innings to work on one of the worst bullpens in baseball, and it worked out for him.
Yeah, and that's really what it came down to is, you get it down to the bullpens, and that battle, you think the Dodgers definitely have the advantage, even if the advantage earlier in the game wasn't quite in their favor. But like you said, getting Crochet out early enough in the game was huge. And, the Dodgers got some hits. They had a couple threats, never a realistic threat, but they were one hit away from getting some runs at least a couple times, and, worked out once it got to the bullpen. And I think, going beyond that, Paxton, with the news that Clayton Kershaw will be shut down for at least a week, and might take a little bit longer for him to come back, assuming he comes back. He did have another MRI, no structural damage. It's just a matter of he was a little bit sore after he hadn't pitched in a long time, and sometimes that happens. But for Paxton, we've talked about him a lot, and realistically, he's exactly what the Dodgers signed him to be, which is a number 5 starter type. Give him some length. He's not pitched well at times, and he's gotten lucky at times, and he's pitched well at times. But realistically, as long as he can go out there every fifth day or so and give them 5 or 6 innings and keep them in the game, then that's all you can really ask for out of him, because we don't expect him to be someone that pitches in October, even in a relief role. I can't really see it happening. But again, there's still a way that you need to get him through you need him to get through the regular season, and that's kind of what he's been.
Yeah, absolutely. Other than that one disastrous start against, who was that, the Pirates? Uh,
Yeah.
Other than that, he's been, like you said, he's been about what they needed him to be. A perfectly fine fifth starter who most of the time eats enough or almost enough innings. Even today, he only got through 5 innings, which would have been really nice to get him through 6, especially because the Dodgers had Blake Trainer warmed up for the 7th inning before the unexpected rain delay. And so basically the Dodgers had to use, uh, did they use 4 relievers? Yeah, they used 4 relievers, but they basically used 5 relievers today. Luckily, it's after a day off, and they have more days off coming. But in a perfect world, you'd like to see Paxton get through 6 innings here, but it's hard to complain too much about the results when he goes 5 innings and strikes out 6 guys, only walks 3, allows I think 3 hits. Just a good, solid, scoreless outing. Yeah, for your fifth starter, it's hard to expect too much more than that.
Yeah, and I'm assuming the answer, I know what the answer is here, but the Dodgers went with Devin Phillips in that 8th inning instead of saving them for the 9th inning for the save opportunity, knowing that the what the White Sox do have to threaten with was batting up there in that 8th inning. And yeah, I don't see there being any complaints on your end for that one.
Not a single one. I love that approach. And Dave Roberts talked after the game about how important it is to have a guy like Vesia who has that mindset. Because I don't totally buy into the 9th inning's a different animal. But enough people who've pitched 9th innings have said it that maybe there's something to it. And if there is, Alex Vesia has the mindset for that. And so Roberts talked about that he can go with matchups with Phillips in the 8th inning, knowing that he has Vesia, that bulldog mentality, ready for the 9th inning, and that Vesia isn't going to be intimidated by coming in a safe situation.
Yeah, if I know Vesia has been good overall for a little while now, for the most part. I want to say that was like his 4th save today. I want to say every time he's had a save opportunity, he goes 1, 2, 3. So, maybe there is a slight thing to that. I mean, he's a guy that obviously works on adrenaline and everything else, and he doesn't throw that hard, but just having that extra hype for him maybe is something that gets him going just a little bit more. But
yeah,
he's been good regardless.
I'll look that up in a minute when you're reading ads. I'll look up Vesia's saves and see if you're right about that.
Yeah. The other thing that kind of, we're going to talk about Miguel Rojas, Miguel Vargas in the next segment. We're part of the bottom of the order. But this game is exactly, when Mookie got hurt, I know I said the Dodgers are going to be okay because they're going to have to just win games 3-0, 4-1, 4-2, like those types of games. It's exactly what came from that. But it was enough from the bottom of the order. Like, Ohtani went over today, did have an RBI, get a nice sac fly there at the end of the game. Will Smith went over. Freddie Freeman had a couple hits, but, nothing behind him. But then you get Rojas had a couple hits. Vargas had a hit. Lux came in and he got a hit. Kike had just 1 hit, but it was the RBI that started the runs for the Dodgers. Chris Taylor had a hit, ended up scoring a run. So it's one of those things where if these guys can just go 1 for 4 almost, or 1 for 5, but one of those hits contributes to the win, like that's really all you can ask for. And getting that on a consistent basis is really what the Dodgers need from this bottom of the order, rather than, a 2 for 4 and then a 0 for 5 and then a 0 for 5 and then, a 2 for 5 and then a 3 offers out. They a one hit almost every day would be a lot better.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, I mean, it's hard to put together a hitting streak even when you're a great hitter, let alone when you're not a great hitter. But yeah, they got the contributions they needed tonight, and definitely shows what they can do, even if they're not great hitters.
All right, Miguel Rojas, the Dodgers has got a hit in 23 games, and the Dodgers have won 23 of those games. We'll talk about that streak a little bit. We'll talk about Miguel Vargas. He's hitting well. He doesn't necessarily have all the playing time that you may want to see out of him for a guy that's hitting as well as he is. But are the Dodgers doing that for a reason in order to keep his trade value high? We'll get into that, so make sure to keep it locked on Dodgers. Today's episode is brought to you by Tax Network USA. We here at Locked on Dodgers pride ourselves in getting you the latest news for the Dodgers, whether it's offseason, the draft, spring training, the playoffs. It's year round. You know what else is year round? Collection season. Just because tax season is over doesn't mean the IRS will stop coming after you for unfiled taxes. The IRS can garnish your wages, levy your bank accounts, and even seize your property. Don't let the IRS target you. Let the licensed professionals and tax expert at Tax Network USA go to bat for you. You know, if you're someone that has no idea what they're doing when it comes to taxes and you end up hiring somebody, but even with that, you're not necessarily always protected. So, you know, you could mess up one time and then, you know, you could see your paycheck have a lot less money in it. And that's because you didn't go to the Tax Network professionals at Tax Network USA. So with over 14 years of experience and an A+ rating by the Better Business Bureau, Tax Network USA has saved their clients over $1 billion in tax debt. Whether you owe taxes, have complicated matters that require tax planning, or finally hit that parlay this season and need help correctly filing, call 1-800-549-1000 or visit tnusa.com/lockedon. That's 1-800-549-1000 or tnusa.com/lockedon. Check the link in the episode description if you want to see what it looks like. Today's episode is also brought to you by Supply House. Order supplies from the website that's made for the skilled trades. Find thousands of parts from hundreds of brands in just a couple clicks at supplyhouse.com. Supplyhouse.com gives you 24/7 access to a huge selection of plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with fast delivery anywhere in the U.S. If you need help with an order, you can get industry-leading after-sales service from their friendly and knowledgeable customer support team and talk to a real person every single time. And there's great news for plumbers, technicians, and contractors. Being a pro has its perks. Trade industry professionals can join their free Trademaster program for free shipping and serious discounts on every order. Over 100,000 pros already trust the Trademaster program to deliver results. Apply for your membership today and get a competitive edge on every order at supplyhouse.com/TM. Save money and time when you order online. Order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies from supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. Well, thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen or your last listen of the day, since we're going live later in the night sometimes. But either way, we're one point of your day where you're listening. We appreciate that. If you're an everydayer, that's just someone that listens or watches every day. We got a few of these in this YouTube chat, and I'm sure there's a lot of you that are everydayers that are listening to this. So congrats and props to you. If you're on YouTube already, you can check out the Locked On Sports Today or Locked On Sports Los Angeles channels. They're 24/7 streaming channels from the Locked On Podcast Network, bringing the biggest news and stories from the sports world and the LA sports world. You can check out the Locked On Dodgers postcast with host Pete Fox after most Dodger games on the Locked On Sports Los Angeles streaming channel and on our audio feed. And you can go beyond the podcast, become a Locked On Dodgers insider at joinsubtext.com/Locked On Dodgers. You can text directly with us, get updates from us, and anything else you can think of. If you want to ask us, you got a direct line. So that's all that, and we're here to talk Miguel, the Miggies.
But first,
Miguel,
I have an Alex Vesia update for you.
Oh, there we go.
That was either the second or third time that he's had a 1-2-3 save, depending on how you look at it, because his save against the Mets, he pitched 2 innings. And in the 8th inning, he walked Harrison Bader. So the 9th inning was 1-2-3, but it wasn't a perfect outing. And then the save against the Royals 10 days ago, he gave up an infield single with 2 outs to Nelson Velasquez before getting the 3rd out. So I say 3 of his 4 saves. The 9th inning was 1-2-3.
All right, I'll take it. All right, now on to Miguel Rojas. The Dodgers improved to 23-0 when he gets a hit. There's a lot of other so-and-so and O's when he does other things, but the hit is the main one. He now had the tweet pulled up. I believe it's the longest streak of team wins when a certain player has a hit to start the season since 1900. The next one after him is 2010 Carlos Pena with 20 hits. Don Drysdale's on the list for 1962 with 18, but obviously it made more sense for John Drysdale because when they won and he got a hit, it was him also pitching.
And he won the Cy Young Award that year, so he was really, really good. They won a lot of his starts.
Yeah, but the Rojas one, obviously if a guy like Rojas is getting a hit, the Dodgers are going to have a better chance because he's a guy you're not necessarily counting on. But Yeah, I don't see the streak is just kind of funny at this point because there's no real rhyme or reason to it. Some of the times he just hits meaningless singles in the game, but it ends up working out because they end up winning later on.
Yeah, in some ways, it's just a gimmicky stat that doesn't mean anything. But in a game like this, he scored the winning run. He started the rally that got the Dodgers their first 2 runs of the game, and so he's definitely been a huge contributor. And so while it is gimmicky, and the fact is, it's like when who was it? Ken Norton Jr. in the '90s. He went to the Super Bowl like 4 years in a row or something, and
Yeah.
and people were like, "Oh, he must be the best football player ever." No, he's just playing on the right teams, And same thing with in the 1980s, it was either Don Baylor or Dave Henderson who went to the World Series 3 years in a row with 3 different teams. Oh, there it is. It's the Don Baylor effect. But it. So in some ways, this is just gimmicky like that he happens to get hits when they win, but also he's had a lot of really impactful hits during that time. And so, I'd say of those 23 games, at least 6 or 8 of them, he played a big part in the win.
Yeah, definitely. And like I said, it's when he's hitting that there's good things going on more than likely. And the big thing with him is making contact. And, sometimes that's all you need, whether it's a CNI single up the middle or, sometimes he does get the power stroke and hits the home run. Either way, he's been contributing. And even though his numbers have gone down a little bit since he's been playing more every day, he's still being good enough, especially in this Dodger lineup right now. Like he's contributing enough to where the Dodgers aren't panicking to make a move right now. And realistically, they wouldn't do that anyways. But either way,
Yeah. And I've said it before, it definitely gives the Dodgers a grace period where they don't have to go out and rush to make a trade to replace Mookie Betts because they've got a really solid replacement. And it helps that the schedule was really weak when Mookie got hurt. But all in all, like having Miguel Rojas on your bench is a huge luxury that the Dodgers have had.
yeah. Now moving on to the other Miguel Vargas. He had a hit in this game. He's now in just 30 at bats, but he's hitting 333 with an OPS of 949, driven in 6 runs. He scored 6 times. Like he's been a legitimate contributor, and specifically in the last 7 games, he's been even better. 7 for his last 17 with 3 RBI. So the question I have and wanted to talk about was Miguel Vargas. Are we hoping the Dodgers give him more of an opportunity for the Dodgers' sake in terms of on the field right now? Or are we hoping that maybe they keep him in this, mainly facing left-handed pitching, being in favorable situations in order to drive trade value up to trade him for someone that has more of a defensive position and a bat that they could use?
Yeah, I think it's more showcasing for a trade just because defensively, his 2 best positions, the Dodgers don't need anybody yet because they have Freddie Freeman and Shohei Ohtani. And the 2 best positions for Miguel Vargas are DH and first base. He was a third baseman, and they moved him to second base because he wasn't a good third baseman. I saw somebody on Twitter today saying that the Rojas or Vargas doesn't get playing time because the Dodgers moved him off his natural positions and tried to make him an outfielder. No, the problem is he doesn't have a natural position. They moved him off third base because he was bad at that. They moved him off second base because he was bad at that. Said, okay, left field, it's the easiest defensive position to play. So let's see if you can do that. And he's done okay, but he's not great defensively. And I think that right now, at least at this point in the season, the Dodgers are valuing defense. And like you said, keeping his trade value high, putting him in situations where he can hit the ball really, really well because he's a great hitter. I really believe that Miguel Vargas is a legitimately very good major league hitter. But I do think plan A for the Dodgers is to use that really good hitter to headline a trade at the trade deadline. Plan B would be, okay, well then let's put him in our lineup. If he's still on the Dodgers the first week in August, I expect him to get a lot more playing time.
Yeah, that's what I think too. It is they could very much have easily put him in a more not everyday role, but more of an everyday role. They could have very well easily put him at second base and split some time with Gavin Lux, even though, he wasn't the greatest defensively there. I don't remember him being that significantly bad to where it really was a detriment. It was mostly his bat last year that he wasn't great on defense, but it was his bat that was worse last year rather than his defense. But yeah, if he's still here after the fact and Lux isn't hitting and Mookie still has another few weeks to come back, I think they might put him in the infield. But he hasn't played infield since last year. And like Robert said that when he came up, is that he's been only an outfielder, and they kind of asked him about him playing infield, and he said Miguel Vargas is going to play outfield. So it seems like that's the way they're going with him. And you think of another guy similar to him, or Michael Busch, who ended up being more of a first baseman. The Dodgers don't need a first baseman. Miguel Vargas can probably be that, or a DH. The Dodgers don't need first base or a DH. But either way, you trade a guy like that, and Busch has cooled down since that one hot streak he had earlier, but he's still carrying 805 OPS on the season. And I think that's something Vargas can do for sure. His OPS over 800 for a team, whether it's a good team or bad team, whatever, at first base or DH. And the Dodgers can get someone that helps them more defensively and offensively, whether it's an outfielder, whether it's a shortstop, whether it's a second baseman, whatever the case is. So yeah, I mean, that's not something I'm saying I want that. I like Miguel Vargas, but realistically, for the Dodgers' sake, that's what makes the most sense.
Yeah, and if he does stick around, I would guess the person who loses playing time to him is Jason Hayward. That Hayward becomes more of a occasionally getting a start, probably giving more days off to Paz and Teoscar too. But also Hayward becomes you're a weapon off the bench in late innings off right-handed pitching, and let Vargas get more starts against righties and lefties if he's still on the team, because I do believe that Miguel Vargas is a better hitter than Jason Hayward right now, overall. And so if he's still on the team, they're going to have to bite the bullet on the defense and just see what can we do, if for no other reason than because they may want to trade him next offseason. They didn't trade Busch at the trade deadline. They traded him in the offseason. And Vargas is going to need to be playing either in the big leagues or at AAA in order to maximize his trade value if he doesn't get traded at the trade deadline. And so they might as well use him if he's hitting well enough at the big league level.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens, but as long as they continue to hit in their interim, that's beneficial for the Dodgers in a variety of ways. So that's really what it's going. All right, Clayton Kershaw, I talked about him a little bit earlier. What does it mean for him, and are we concerned? Teoscar Hernandez wasn't in the lineup. We were a little bit concerned, but then we found out that it wasn't injury related, but unfortunately for him, maybe was family death related. But we'll talk about all that. So make sure to keep it locked on Dodgers. Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. All you got to do is pick more or less. And that's really what the gist of Prize Picks is. It's America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. You go on the app, you look at a player and a stat, not just in baseball, but over all the sports that are going on. And you pick more or less on that stat. And if you pick at least 2 players and 2 more or lesses, then you can put together a package. And if you go all the way up to 6 players, put together a package that has a better chance of winning you a little bit more money. So get in on the daily actions right now with your friends and become a part of the Prize Picks community. And right now you can win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000. Get those pick. There's demons and goblins. Demons are harder to get, but have a bigger payout. And goblins are a little bit easier to get, but have a lesser payout. And Prize Picks is available in more than 30 states across the country, including California, Texas, and Georgia. The finals are over. The Stanley Cup is over, but there's still baseball going on. There's women's basketball going on. There's a lot more other sports going on, even esports if you're into that. So go check out the Prize Picks app, download it right now. And if you use the code LOCKEDONMLB, you get a first deposit match up to $100. That's code LOCKEDONMLB on Prize Picks for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks, pick more, pick less. It's that easy. I want to thank you for being an everydayer. If you are one, that's just someone that listens or watches every day. We appreciate you if you are. And if you're not one, we hope that you consider becoming an everydayer. And remember, there is a way to go beyond the podcast with the Locked On Dodgers insiders. All you got to do is go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers, and you can get text directly from us when there's breaking news, updates, rumors, thoughts that we have, all that type of stuff. And if you have any questions, thoughts, or anything of that nature, you can send it our way, and we can hopefully get you an answer quickly and efficiently. And Jeff, fortunately, we found out about Clayton Kershaw the other day that he had some soreness and they weren't sure of next steps for him. We got the answer of what the next steps are right now. He'll be shut down for at least a week. They'll see where the soreness is and how it is. He'll throw maybe a couple bullpens and then get back into the rehab assignments that he was supposed to do, getting his way back. But in general, like we said, I mentioned they had an MRI, no structural damage. Kirsten Watson on the broadcast said that it was maybe something they anticipated, and it's not necessarily a setback, but just a process of a throwing program. But are you at all concerned about Kershaw and the shoulder?
Not overly at this point. I think, when we've talked about how he was ahead of schedule, and the fact is, these sort of schedules are rarely linear. They are usually more of a roller coaster. And so, it's like a baseball game that after 4 innings, you're like, wow, this game is on pace to be done in an hour and 48 minutes. But you inevitably run into a slow inning that bumps it back, and again, very few games in an hour and 48 minutes because baseball happens. And I think this is kind of the same thing, that when you look at Kershaw's expected timeline, there were some built-in whatever is slightly less than a setback is. There were built-in, all right, let's put him on hold for a minute kind of things, because there is going to be soreness. There is going to be, 2 steps forward and 1 step back kind of situations. And that's why the timeline was what it was. I still think that he has a decent chance to make it back ahead of the original timeline, but this sort of thing is why the timeline was what it was.
Yeah, and realistically, everything had been pointing to Kershaw being maybe a little bit ahead of it. And Dave Roberts was even, had been surprised at some of the progress he had made. So it's one of those where, yeah, the arm feels good when you're playing catch. The arm feels good when you throw a bullpen. The arm feels a little different after you pitch in a competitive game. And, sometimes that happens. So like I said, not overly concerned. And for the Dodgers' sake, they mentioned Landon Knack's going to stay in the rotation for who knows how long, but with Buehler out right now, and then Kershaw maybe not coming back as quick as they thought, Landon Knack could see himself here through the All-Star break for sure.
Yeah, and that's good news for him, and really good news for the Dodgers, because he deserves to be up. And like we saw, the hiccups that Bobby Miller had last year help him this year. Even more, Gavin Stone. Like what Gavin Stone went through last year helped him be a really great pitcher this year. Knack hasn't had those kind of hiccups, but every bit of experience you get, it speeds up your process of becoming a legitimate big league pitcher. And so Knack, the fact that he's also pitching really well, just adds to it. But even if he was struggling, I'd be glad that he was getting more time in the big leagues, because like I said many times, there's some things about being a big league pitcher that you can only learn by pitching in the big leagues.
Yeah. So we'll continue to monitor the Kershaw situation. Teoscar Hernandez was out of the lineup for the first time this season. At first, we just saw the lineup, didn't have many details. We do remember that he came out early from one of the games in Colorado. So, it's easy to think that maybe it was some lingering effect from that. But then we found out that he went back to the Dominican Republic for a personal matter. There's a report on social media that says it was a grandfather passing away. Again, we don't need to know that, I guess. But if it is, prayers and condolences out to him and his family. But yeah, Jeff, I mean, just one of those things where this stuff happens. The Dodgers, we're down a man for not down a man on the roster and obviously in the lineup right now. But it just goes to show that there's sometimes baseball is not the most important thing.
Yeah. And, if you just look at the math of it, a grandpa passing away makes sense for something that you would miss one game for. Obviously, if it was a parent, you would expect him to miss more time and actually go on the bereavement list. If it was something closer to him, a grandparent makes a lot of sense. Okay, I'm going to go be with my family for a day. Maybe it happened on Sunday or Saturday, so he got to spend yesterday and today with his family. We don't know, but like you said, ultimately, it's personal business for him. But the fact that, purely from a baseball standpoint, the fact that he will be back tomorrow is good news for the Dodgers, and realistically probably good news for him, because it means that whatever he went back to the Dominican Republic for wasn't super serious and tragic.
So, I don't know, Jeff, is there anything else from this game that stood out to you? Or
Not from this game, but we've got people in the chat who are following the Padres Nationals game right now as we're talking. I don't know if you're following. I actually have it up over here. That's why I keep glancing over here on my screen. I just have the game cast up. The Nationals scored 3 runs in the top of the 10th. After the first 2 batters got out, then Keibert Ruiz doubled, and somebody after that hit a 2-run homer. Nick Senzel, I think. Well, now in the bottom of the 10th, the Padres have scored 2 runs, had second and third with or first and second with nobody out, and then a sac bunt moved it to second and third. But then David Peralta popped out to third base. So now it's 0-2. Oh, and then they intentionally walked Luis Ariz, which you definitely want to do with the winning run on second base, tying run on third base. Now it's 0-2 on Jurickson Profar as we're watching this. So, and the last I saw, the Giants are down 4-2 in the 9th inning too, I believe. So the Dodgers could pick up a game on both of those teams if Hunter Harvey can get Jurickson Profar out, and whoever's pitching for the Cubs can get whoever's hitting for the Giants out. So always good to pick up games in the division, even when it's not a close race.
Yeah. Hearing Profar's name just reminded me. We didn't talk about the first round of All-Star voting last week. The second round of All-Star voting came in. Teoscar Hernandez actually passed up Fernando Tatis for the third spot. Third outfield spot. Not a guaranteed starter spot, but it goes into the next round of voting. Profar is still the number 1 outfielder, which for whatever reason, people really like him. Freddie Freeman, I believe, is in first at first base. Mookie's in first at shortstop. Will Smith's in third for catchers. So if you are into fan voting, you might as well go ahead and get those votes in. I believe 1 more week, and then they get into the next round of voting.
I think it's just a couple of days. I think the first round of voting ends on Thursday. So it's 2-2 on Profar. He just fouled off a tough pitch. So, on the edge of our seats here. Hopefully by the time you're done saying all the goodbyes, Profar will have struck out or something.
Yeah, we got one question here about Muncy. Muncy should be back by the end of the season, but the way it's trending right now, we might not know if he's back before or after the All-Star break, and for sure when he'll be back. So the Dodgers will have to factor that into their decision making.
Yeah, now that he's on the 60-day IL, he can't come back before the All-Star break. But that gets us close to the trade deadline, and Dodgers might have to make some tough decisions at the trade deadline about what they're going to do about third base if they're not sure when Muncy's coming back. So
we'll see. But that's going to do it for today's episode. Thank you all for listening.
In-play runs. Jurickson Profar. Leach is tight. It may have won it. Let's see. Sorry, you go ahead and talk. I'll tell you in a second.
Thank you all for listening. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen. Thank you for being in every day. If you are one, make sure you tell your friends and family about Locked On Dodgers. If you are a Dodger or if they're a Dodger fan or someone who knows a Dodger fan. And update, Jeff.
Profar walked it off. Ground rule double.
Man, crazy. All right. Well, Dodgers don't pick up a game on the Padres, but they're still very much ahead of the Padres. So not the worst thing, I guess. You can check us out wherever you get podcasts, and on YouTube, you can become a subscriber by subscribing. You can become an everyday while listening, watching every day. You can check out Locked On Sports Today or Locked On Sports Los Angeles, 24/7 streaming channels on the Locked On Podcast from the Locked On Podcast Network, bringing you the biggest news and stories from the sports world and the LA sports world. You can also find you can be on the podcast, become a Locked On Dodgers Insider at joinsubtext.com/Locked On Dodgers. Text directly with us. It's just a few bucks a month, and you can be part of that exclusive club. You can also find us on social media, Twitter and Instagram and TikTok at Locked On Dodgers. Jeff's on Twitter at Snydog. I'm at Vincents91. DMs are open. If you have any questions or comments, you can also send those via email, lockedondodgers@gmail.com, or via voicemail text at 323-863-5625. We're here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be here with us when you get in your car. If you're at home, text my device, play podcast, Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. Have a good one.
We'll talk to you tomorrow.